Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is the fourth Monday of the month, which means it's time for Goodbye Lupus with Dr. Brooke Goldner, who has an incredible new book out. It is adorable. It's got wonderful, and the recipes are not only delicious, but easy to make. It's called Goodbye Lupus, Hello Delicious. There'll be a link below to purchase it. It's already a bestseller in multiple categories. Please welcome her to the show. Today, she's going to be talking about dehydration and brain fog and some unknown causes of things you might be experiencing. Please
Yeah, there's
welcome.
all those recipes for food, and then we're not going to talk about food, but
Well, I would love
I want to
sometime,
give you something new and fresh. But yeah, go ahead.
maybe one time you come on, just one time, even for a portion, and do like one recipe, because I think people would love to see you in the kitchen.
Yeah, and it was the biggest thing that people ask for. I'm always trying to make things simple. I have a nutrition protocol. It's not just about diet in general, but there's a protocol. And the easiest thing to do to meet protocol is make a green smoothie. We have free recipes at smoothieshred.com. We try to make it very, very easy for people. But over the years, one of the biggest requests was, well, what about if I want to make the meals and make them more fancy? And I'm not a fancy person. I come from immigrants who came to this family, like whatever, just simple. It's on the table, you go. So it took me a while to put it together, but it's a special book for a lot of reasons. All the recipes in there are either from me or from people who used my protocol to reverse their disease. And so it's a unique recipe book in that every recipe in it healed somebody of a disease, except for the recipes that were contributed by my son Alex, who wouldn't have existed had I not healed from a disease. So it's very, very special. And so I'm honored that it has 5 stars. It's been a bestseller for months now since it came out, but it's really, people are loving it and posting recipe tributes, showing pictures of their recipes. And but it's been really beautiful thing to be able to release and see how much people enjoy it. I've always said, if you have a dressing you like and a smoothie you like, you can heal. But this now, has desserts and
I love the dessert category. Look at that. That's my favorite.
yeah,
Yeah.
my little darlings. Yeah, desserts I think have been a big deal for a lot of people. My son Alex wanted to be a vegan chef, and he contributed his candy recipe there that he created, and that's been a huge thing where people are like, oh my God, I have chocolate candy now. I can live. I can eat raw. I can be healthy. But
Apparently
yeah,
the grown-ups can eat the dessert too.
yes,
It's not just
yeah, a lot of pictures from my family, and but it's some people who contributed recipes. A lot of them also shared their stories. So whether they had rheumatoid arthritis or multiple sclerosis or lupus or diabetes or different kinds of diseases, they shared their stories and how they healed. So it's been it's kind of a tribute to my clients. It's something that can help people all over the world who want to heal and have fun with it. We even had a recipe from Robin Lawley, who's a supermodel who healed her lupus with me. Her cannelloni recipe is very popular. So yeah, she never stops talking about me online. But it's an amazing thing for those of us who've been sick to no longer be sick and to no longer be afraid of being sick. That matters for so many of us. So that's why I'm always sharing, doing things. So yes, that was a book I was forced to write by my fans and followers. But it's really nice.
well, I know.
Again, I'm scared of recipes with too many ingredients, and I'm overwhelmed in the kitchen, easily overwhelmed in the kitchen.
I mean, who are these people that are doing the complicated recipes other than maybe, restaurant chefs? I mean, and I've interviewed hundreds of doctors. I don't see any of them saying, well, the secret to the success is you take 30 different recipes for breakfast, 30 different recipes for lunch, and 30 different recipes for dinner and make them. No, it's simplicity is what's going to help people just stick to this long term, I think.
Well, most people in life, what I've found, whether you're plant-based or not, eat about the same stuff every day. I do. I know you've told me you do. We get into our routine, and here's maybe there's a variation of 5 recipes that we use on a general basis. But I've had people come to me who told me they did programs where they were told they had to have like 30 different things, and each meal should have 10 different. And I'm like, it's not. I've been drinking the same smoothie recipe for a decade. I like it. It's easy to make. It nourishes me. It works. It's just not necessary to be so complicated. And when things are complicated, they overwhelm people, and then it feels too hard to do it.
I
And I've always tried teaching. People will say to me, it just seems too simple when you teach, but that's by design. I want it to be simple. And what animal on the planet has a complicated diet naturally? Every animal eats the same stuff every day. They do well. And we are animals too. And we can survive very well if we're eating the right stuff. Then it's okay for it to be simple, and it doesn't have to be a rainbow every day and all that. It's just not necessary. So yes, I think simple is important. But if you wanted variety, there you go. For me, I can admit there's not much variety for me. I have so much going on in my life every day that simplicity is what wins. It's why I've stayed healthy all these years, is simplicity.
Yeah, I like what you said. That's true about animals and variety. I mean, the only variety in nature, I guess, is, is it going to be a gazelle or a zebra that they eat, and they don't drink different beverages too. They drink just water or breast milk when they're young.
You're segueing like a pro.
But it's true. People make it too hard. It's really the simplicity is key. I agree.
Yeah, every animal. I mean, I horses everyday grass. Sometimes I'm lucky enough that when I go to work out, it's right near where there's horses that I get to see, and they're just much on grass every day. But I was talking to a guy once who told me that his horse really loves certain like dandelions or something, and that's a treat, for the horse when there's certain flowers blooming that he can eat. But most of the time, grass, and muscled out, doing well, healthy. Yeah, humans have figured out how to turn what we eat into drugs, and then we turn it in, it's recreational activity instead of nutrition. But that's a whole nother thing. But you mentioned the way they drink, and that's something that I think has gotten lost. And that's why I thought it would be fun when I was trying to think of it. You were harassing me, like, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, oh,
well, you can always just answer questions, but I know you sometimes like to talk a little bit about
I'm playing with you. But at the time that you were texting me, what do you want to do for your topic? I was in the middle of working on some slides because next weekend, I'm actually the keynote speaker for Kaiser Permanente's wellness conference. So they have a major wellness conference every year. It's the largest medical group in the country. And they have me as their keynote speaker. 1,100 people have signed up to go there. So it's always nice when I get to speak to doctors and train them. So they want me to really get nerdy with the doctors, So I was working on some slides at that moment on that, how important water is, which is overlooked. And so I thought, you know what? That's what I'll talk about then. You texted me and you asked me, do you have time? I was like, fine, we're going to talk about water. Because most of the emphasis when people are looking at lifestyle and nutrition is really on food. And people will argue about what food is the most important food. But what people don't talk about much is water. I'll have people come to me and say, all I drink is a certain kind of tea because I saw a video that said this tea is antioxidants for this and that. And I have met so many people who drink either no water, or the only water they get is from maybe some tea that they have. One lady told me once years ago that the only water she drank is what she accidentally swallowed when she brushed her teeth. When she suffered from constipation so badly that she's had surgeries on her, for getting tears from trying to have bowel movements and straining. And no doctor asked her about water before me. In 2 weeks of drinking water, she was having normal bowel movements after 20 years of constipation. That we're constantly looking at, okay, mostly medication in the medical world. And when we do talk about nutrition, we're talking about food, but the water topic doesn't come up enough. And so I've been teaching this for a long time, decades. And but they're doing more and more research in this. And I thought it was fun to kind of look at what else have they researched recently. So, when I talk to my clients for wellness or my patients, I'm always talking to them that our bodies should be like the earth. We should be mostly water. Right? And so it is essential and important for our body function to make sure we're getting adequate water every day. And the most common symptom, by the way, of people who are dehydrated, or actually hypohydrated is the clinical term, because dehydrating is the process of getting hypohydrated. But the dehydration, a lot of people who have been dehydrated for a long time actually are not thirsty. And so a lot of times when I talk to people who don't drink adequate water, they'll say, well, I'm never thirsty. And I said, that's your brain trying to protect you from dying from thirst. My Alex was a funny kid. And I remember him saying to me once when he was like 8 or 9, he goes, if you die from dehydration, does it mean you dried to death? I was like, yeah, pretty much it did. But it's overlooked. So it's critical. Water intake is critical for maintaining the normal functions of the body in many different ways. And even mild dehydration has effects right away, acutely right away, on your exercise performance, on your immune function, and your cognitive function and mental performance. A lot of people who have brain fog and why did I go into the kitchen? I don't remember. Part of the reason is actually dehydration. They don't even realize it. It's the leading cause of headaches, constipation, and low energy. Think about how much money people spend on headaches, constipation, and low energy. They're chugging coffee and energy drinks, right? They're taking ibuprofen and headache medicines until they're getting ulcers in their stomachs. And they're taking laxatives for constipation. And for a lot of these people, if they would just drink water, all of those issues would go away. So there's actually a whole list of, there's been some new studies out looking at the impact of water on diseases, and they found that there's an enormous list, but I can just read off a few of them that they found water to help. So first of all, kidney stones, that's definite. If you don't want to have kidney stones, well, make sure you're hydrated enough that they're not precipitating out. Urinary tract infections, hypertension or high blood pressure, DVTs. You want to prevent your blood from being too thick and clotting. Well, make sure that you're hydrated enough. Same with strokes are also on the list. Fatal heart disease, dental disease, diabetic ketoacidosis, where your blood sugar is so high that it could put you into a coma. Hydration has been shown to be an important factor in that. Gallstones, mitral valve prolapse, glaucoma, but also even new studies showing that it could be a key factor in developing things like exercise-induced asthma and even cystic fibrosis. So the benefits of water in terms of preventing disease, I mean, the studies are just showing more and more how important this is. And I've never actually heard any other doctor talk about this. And I listen, I participate in a lot of conferences and nobody's talking about this. One of the places that it was talked about early on, and one of the only areas I've heard it talked about is in fitness, right? So in fitness for a long time now, my husband's expertise has been in that area for a long time. And he said that's where he learned that if you want to help your clients lose weight, build muscle, drink a gallon a day or 3.8 liters for the folks who are international. But when he would say why, nobody knew. Just the guys in fitness knew that it was important. So what they found is that water consumption is actually associated with increasing your metabolic rate, right? Thermogenesis, your metabolic rate. And it increases fat oxidation and energy expenditure. So if you're trying to burn off fat, if you're drinking more water, you burn more fat. So there's a lot of people out there who are exercising and they're eating healthy diets and they're still not burning that fat. And for some of those folks, if they would just increase their water intake, the fat would fall off. So we've seen it across the board, and I've worked with people all over the world with different goals. And what we find is all those happen together is that when they're trying to reverse their disease, if they're not getting adequate water intake, we don't see the results. And if they're trying to lose fat, they need to get that water intake up. So it's just one of those things that is so important. And then one study I just read that I thought was so important, it got my son Solomon to grab his water bottle because I have to nag that one, is that dehydration will, even small amounts, mild dehydration has been shown to damage cell membranes and cause cell death. Even mild dehydration. So whenever I see his water bottle's not empty, I go, cell death, and he runs and grabs it. So it's just such an important thing that's overlooked. And so when it comes to water intake, I think if people are getting, the FDA recommended guidelines of 64 ounces a day, that will help prevent a lot of these problems. And what's sad to me is that most people aren't even there. They're not even there. To me, I would feel dehydrated if that's all the water I had that day, because I'm used to high water intake. But for many people, that's a goal that they haven't even hit. I'll talk to people drinking 20 ounces a day, 30 ounces a day, as I mentioned, or less. For people who are trying to do disease reversal with me, I have a protocol, the Goodbye Lupus protocol. It's named that because of my story, but I've helped people reverse chronic diseases across the board. We even had some people in our group this week. I have a rapid recovery group where I help people every day for 6 weeks. And we just finished a group Friday, which is awesome. Once again, every single person who participated had incredible results. And we even had somebody with CRPS, or chronic regional pain syndrome, who wasn't sure if she could get pain reduction, who did get pain reduction at the end, which was fantastic because we don't have any way of treating that medically. We've had a lot of people with rare diseases who have improved that could not improve anywhere else. Neuropathies from chemotherapy. We've had 2 people with ALS improve, as well as things like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. Everybody with kidney failure had their kidney function go up at least 10 points or more. It's just an incredible thing. And so, you know, one of those things that we were looking at though with them is their water intake. And for many people, it's the first time in their life they've ever had that much water. But in that program, we're getting people up to 96 ounces or more, which causes that rapid change, right? I'm addicted to that kind of water. If I have less than that, I don't feel right. And for a lot of people, that's what happens is in the beginning, they go, I have so much water. Oh my God, it's so much water. And then by the end, they're drinking more water than I recommend. We're like, whoa, that's a lot of water. Look at you go. That's what, every time I give a talk on stage.
I know every time you're on the show, I just have to drink more water. But
I'm going to have to refill after this, right? So, so we get people to 96 ounces or more, unless they have a reason that they can't. So some people, when they're sick, can't do it. So I always want to put that out there. If you are in kidney failure or heart failure, you have some issue like that where you cannot tolerate water anymore because you are so sick. That's when I have to make changes. So all the people who, you know, I have helped people get off the kidney transplant list. I've gotten people off of dialysis. But if you're that sick, your kidneys can't filter that water anymore. And so the water can end up in your legs and your lungs and your heart. So that's why usually people with organ failure will do something like my rapid recovery group, because I need to watch them every day and see. And if they're handling the water and I can see from their labs they're handling the water, great, we can increase it. If they're not, we have to cut it back. And the good news is for those people, they still improve even on the restriction because it's the maximum water they can handle. But for most folks, you can handle it and you can enjoy it. The other side that I see issues with is that a lot of folks are on completely salt-free diets now. And it's understandable because there's a lot of issue that people have had from being oversalted. People don't realize that they're having cups of salt a day with processed foods and animal products and all the stuff they're eating. And so for a lot of folks, especially when they try to do a protocol like mine, they don't realize they've eliminated every bit of salt, especially when you're raw, right? And you're doing smoothies. And then they try to raise their water intake too quickly. And they can actually have problems where they can't stop urinating or their sodium levels go down in their bloodstream. So I always like to remind them that there is a minimum sodium allowance that people need of about a teaspoon a day. And when you're drinking a gallon of water, you're going to need to have that to be able to bring it in, because your kidneys will say, oh, I have to keep the blood sodium level this much. And then all this water comes flooding in with no salt, and the kidneys go, well, let's dump all that out. And you're just like, you move your work desk into your bathroom so you can keep peeing. So, you know, there's little things like that people have to adjust for. But generally speaking, if people could just get that water intake up to, and you know, that minimum of 64 ounces, but really if you want to lose weight, especially if you want to burn fat, if you want to have that clear mind, if you're constantly getting headaches, constipation, or any of the other issues I mentioned, water intake might be the key factor that's holding you back from a full recovery or higher quality of life, or even help fix that brain fog that you were blaming your age when really it was just that you were dehydrated. It's cool stuff. I mean, I could talk about water for hours, but it's just such an important thing that just is blown over. People are arguing over whether it's kale or broccoli or potatoes or this and that. Nobody's talking about the fact that everyone's just dehydrated. You're going to keep drinking all that. All right, I'll drink too.
No, so we both have purple water bottles. So here's the question. How much water, what kind of water, and what are people's resistance to drinking water? Because, you know, I went to True North and fasted, and even when you fast, they don't have you drink 96 ounces. They say, you know, I think it was like half that or so during a water fast.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, kudos to you. That's not something I for me, fasting sounds, I teach hyper-nourishing, like overdosing nutrition. But yeah, I don't know if that's because of the needing salt or whatever. I don't know. I haven't studied the water fasting protocols. Resistance to it, as I said, for a lot of folks who've been chronically dehydrated, they don't experience thirst anymore in a normal way. And once they decide to do it, so if someone joins a program with me or they come, you know, for me for a wellness appointment, then I'm telling them how much water they need. And so what we start doing is game planning on how to get it in. So for some people, if they just get a big bottle like this one's not even that big to me. This is a 70 ouncer. So I always tell them, if you drink a blender of smoothie where you put 30 ounces of water in that, and then you drink one of these, you got all your water for the day. Like, this isn't so big. So, versus like, this is my gallon jug. I have water bottles all around me. That's my gallon jug. But people often will only drink the water that's in front of them. So if you're busy working all day and all you have is a 20-ounce water bottle, there's a good chance that you're going to finish that. And then you're just going to be so busy, you're not going to refill it and you're dehydrated. So if that's you, I recommend you get a big bottle where you can put your water intake for the day and keep it with you. For other folks, because they're so not thirsty, they have to set a phone timer. And so every 2 hours or so, a timer goes off and they just chug it. They just chug a 20-ounce bottle when the timer goes off, and then they can go back to work and stop thinking about it. I also recommend that for people who have overactive bladders, for women who've had a lot of kids and they have issues, or, sometimes people they have trouble holding their fluid, their water. I always tell them, instead of sipping and dripping, just chug a bottle every couple hours. And that way you get one big water intake, one big pee, rather than drink pee. Your bladder does get used to it, by the way. But those are some of the resistances. Also, there are some people who will lower their water intake just because of that. And they'll say, I don't like going to the bathroom all the time. And say, listen, I can't change the fact that what goes in comes out. But you can't use that as a reason not to eat, not to drink. So we do sometimes have to problem solve. I've helped people reverse MS. And a lot of times in late MS, there's bladder issues, incontinence. And we have to do things like plan around when they go out. Sometimes they have to wear protective undergarments. It's a shame that their disease has gotten so progressed that it's affected that way. And they need the water intake to recover. So there are instances where there's medical reasons why we might go slower or limit things, as I said, even with organ failure. But for most people, it's really a matter of habit and not being thirsty anymore because they're so dehydrated that they don't notice it. But it's one of those things that once you start getting in that habit, you become thirsty. I never drank water either. I'll say I am recovered. I always tell people I was not born this way. I'm a recovered standard Western diet eater. And my mother was always on a diet. So our fridge always had Diet Coke in it, except for when she spent 2 years addicted to Diet Peach Snapple. Then it was that, but it was always some kind of diet caffeinated drink. And that's what we drank. I didn't drink water. And so I remember when I switched to the nutrition plan that reversed my lupus 18 years ago, I went overnight from drinking only Diet Coke and coffee because I was a medical student and then an intern. If it didn't have caffeine, it didn't seem to make sense to consume it. So I only drank Diet Coke and coffee, and overnight switched to a gallon of water a day. And I just made the decision to, but that's how I am. If I make the decision, I'm just going to do it. And yeah, I never craved water ever before that. If I was thirsty, I drank a soda. And now I easily can drink a gallon of water a day, and it's mindless, it's habit. So any new thing is hard at first. And then when it becomes habit, you're like, how did I ever live without it?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It's just, if you have a purple water bottle, it's easier because it's prettier.
I have a lot of purple. I got my purple smoothie cup. I got my purple water bottle. Yeah, I like purple. It's nice. And it's lupus awareness color too.
Do you have a preference of like a reverse osmosis, a Brita-fill, like, does it matter, or just drink water?
I have found that if it's water, it works. The only one I would probably say not to is something like distilled because it loses a lot. But when I was healing it, not for some reason this freaks people out, but when I was going through this, I was working at a hospital full time. So when I needed to refill my water bottle, I used the sink in the bathroom. Like, everybody like, oh, I didn't use some toilet water. I used the sink, but it was just one of those things where water is water. So I have found people have been able to, yes, you can recover your health using alkaline water and special filtered water and everything, or you can use tap water. Even now, I don't use any special filters. I have a water cooler that has just a regular filter just because I don't like the taste of the water here. I grew up in New York where the water, I know people think New York is like this dirty place, but the water is really clean and delicious. And when I've moved out to different areas, sometimes I don't like the taste of the water. So I have a filter like that just, it cools it and filters it, but it's not like an alkaline. It's not a special kind. It's just the tap water that's just filtered a little bit more because so I can like the flavor, or I'll take the water right out of the fridge. You know, the fridge has a faucet on it, but I haven't seen that make the difference. Even with alkaline water, there are benefits for some people that I've noticed, especially if you're not on an alkaline diet, that it can help you try to shift things to more alkaline way in your body. But for me, when we had, my husband and I had a client who was selling those big alkaline systems that cost like thousands of dollars to install. And so she wanted to give us alkaline water to test so we could, you know, testify what it did for us. And so she gave us a couple gallons of water a day of alkaline water to try. We felt no difference, but we're already alkaline. Our urine pH is always over 7.5. So it's not, for us, it didn't make a difference. But for people who either prefer the flavor or find that it helps them, it's fine. So you can use the expensive stuff. There's people who use, yes, plastic water bottles of water, and their disease went away. They didn't have any other issues. So I know people get very intense about that. Oh, plastic, this and that. Whatever's in that, they're still benefiting from the water intake. So I would just say whatever water you can get that works for you is going to be the right water intake. Yeah, we've had it tested. Everyone does it differently. Yeah.
Should we be shooting for a certain color pee?
Well, that one is different because, yes, in general, people should have clear urine. You know,
but clear, you mean like clear, like the color of water, or just a very faint yellow?
Like a faint yellow would be if you're not taking any supplements. But if you're taking B12, that tends to turn your urine a kind of greenish yellow. So that can kind of taint it. Sometimes people will go, "Oh my God, my really, really yellow urine." And yes, your B12 supplement. But if it's looking like tea, that's a problem. Some people's urine is dark and looks like tea, and that's a very bad sign. You want to make sure that it is very clear. But if it's clear with a hint of yellow because you're taking B12 or something, that's fine. But I think people look, honestly, I think people look at the toilet too much. Whether it's for their poop or pee or anything else, I think it just creates anxiety to look in the toilet. Whatever's in there is yesterday's news. Just, you got to move on. But it's the intake that matters, and making sure that you're getting what you need, so that your body can function. Like I said, I mean, it's every single system, from the way the brain functions to getting things like headaches to how well you can metabolize your food, oxidize fat from workouts, have your immune system work properly, reverse disease. Water is part of every single one of those metabolic processes. And when you neglect that, all that hard work at eating well, you're going to waste some of that you didn't even realize, just because you decided to have one more cup of coffee instead of drinking that water intake. It's really important.
You bring up a good point, because it's not that people can't drink other beverages, but aren't certain beverages like caffeinated beverages, coffee, alcohol, actually more dehydrating anyway?
Sure, absolutely. So if you're drinking a lot of caffeine, you're accelerating the process of urinating. Yeah, alcohol actually will cause people to urinate more as well, but hopefully nobody's using that as their primary intake for drinking. I have found that people can have caffeinated beverages and still recover. I usually limit it to one a day, and people will cry happy tears, like, I can have my cup of coffee. I'm like, one, but not 8, not 10, right? If you're that tired, one, you're in caffeine withdrawal all the time, and 2, you're really dehydrated. So yeah, I think that people over rely on things like caffeine for those reasons. But if you suddenly stop caffeine, it can also cause rebound constipation and headaches. And you can go, see, I tried drinking more water and I got more constipation and headaches. No, you're in caffeine withdrawal. So I usually say add the water to your current caffeine intake, and then try to limit it to like 1 cup a day. I mean, people who do my programs with me, like my rapid recovery group, they often will tell me I don't need coffee anymore because I actually have natural energy for the first time. So I don't tell them to quit. They just notice that they have real energy and they just don't want it anymore. And others just enjoy that flavor and they might still have it, or they can have decaf. But yeah, you can have that bit of coffee or tea or caffeinated tea, but don't make that your primary drink. Make sure you actually are hydrating yourself.
Yeah. I remember reading a book at the Optimum Health Institute over 20 years ago called Your Body's Many Cries for Water.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that people don't associate their symptoms with the real cause oftentimes, right? So when people have a headache, they don't think, I wonder if I'm dehydrated. They go, where's the ibuprofen, right? So sometimes you can have a headache because you didn't get enough sleep, or maybe you have a headache because you skipped your morning coffee that you're addicted to, or maybe it is that you're dehydrated. And so it's important to actually look at those things. Same with constipation. The reasons people get constipated are going to be from either low fiber intake or dehydration. If you're doing my smoothies and my water protocol in my protocol, that goes away. I have met so many people. I remember having a wellness consultation with a woman in her 80s, and she'd been constipated her whole life. And I remember her meeting with her distinctly because she was kind of grumpy. There was no smiling at me. And normally I can get people to smile. And she was just very, very serious and stern. And then we followed up about a month later, and she was smiling at me. And I almost didn't recognize her. And it turned out she wasn't grumpy. She was just that constipated that she was irritable. And I'm saying, you know, it is so good for people's moods to have great bowel movements. She was suddenly having a bowel movement every day, no need for medication. And she wasn't even on my full Goodbye Lupus protocol. She was just on a plant-based diet, unprocessed plant-based diet with green smoothies and water, increasing her water intake. And she was having wonderful bowel movements. After living an entire lifetime constipated and annoyed, she felt relaxed, in a good mood. I had another man who's actually a friend who told me that I saved his marriage because he thought his wife was in permanent PMS, but it turned out it was constipation. And he said, ever since she added our smoothies and drinking her water, she's just been walking around smiling all day because she feels so good. So it is a miserable thing to just be constipated, and that's something that's avoidable. It's something that's fixable. Of course, I've also treated people who have Crohn's that have the constipated form of Crohn's disease. And we have helped people reverse Crohn's. I mean, every rapid recovery group so far, they have reversed Crohn's. We had someone in this last one. He had the opposite. He was having 10, 12 bowel movements a day. And people are sometimes like, oh my God, if I go on your program, that's all I'm going to do is poop. And he tried on his own and it made it worse. He did the group. He followed my instructions. He worked hard. I had to change things for him, which is one of the things I love about working with people every day is I can change things based on what's happening. And he finished off 1 BM a day and able to now do step down and enjoy life without bowel disease. So, you know, like I said, sometimes I have to change things up and fix things for people. And I'm good at that. I've helped so many people over the years. I actually have a new public research that's going to be published soon in Frontier magazine about 3 people who have remained symptom-free and off meds with lupus and Sjogren's for many years now after doing rapid recovery with me. All 3 of them reversed all their symptoms. 1 2 weeks, 1 4 weeks, and 1 was 8 weeks. And all of them have been off meds and symptom-free for many, many years, maintaining their health since then. And so it's one of those things where once you get well, you can just keep it and enjoy your life from there. So I'm excited when that's going to come up. But that took us years of shopping around to get a mainstream magazine willing to take it. You know, they're just not that interested in nutrition publications, unfortunately.
People are asking, what about coconut water? Will that count, or does it have to be just plain water?
If you have a coconut and you want to drink from it, okay. But I have found in general, especially disease reversal, I don't use coconut water because it's mostly sugar. You know, when you look at those ingredients and you look at that panel where it shows the breakdown, protein, carbs, sugars, it's all sugar. So I don't use that for disease reversal. But if you're sitting in Hawaii, you want to crack open a coconut and drink it, and you have good health, I don't see a reason not to. It is very hydrating because the way it's built. You know, they actually use that when they in the past, if they didn't have enough blood for blood infusions, they would use coconut water. But it's not going to replace your need for regular water. And I know some people like to do that, and it's just, why am I gaining weight? You're having sugar all day. You got to have the regular water. So I think occasionally, sure, and especially if it's fresh. But I wouldn't buy the packaged coconut waters and use that instead of regular water.
Right. And people are saying if they have a high consumption of fruits and vegetables, does that count towards their water intake?
I don't count that. I was expecting to hear that. I've seen so many folks try to float that if you just eat hydrating foods like fruits and vegetables, that will fix everything. It doesn't, especially because people don't realize how dried out they are. And people are eating other things that are dry, whether you're having breads or crackers or other things, especially different kinds of grains, they usually come dried in some way. So I have not seen that work. And I work with people on raw diets where they're eating raw fruits and vegetables all day, and they still have to get their water intake up to the levels I tell them to get the results. So I can say from results that no, just eating fruit does not replace your need for water intake.
Thanks. Would you mind answering a few questions that were previously submitted by some
Sure. I don't want to take too much of your time though, because you have this conference today.
Oh yeah. No. I'm watching the time and I appreciate that. And before we get, this is fantastic that you're speaking to 1,100 Kaiser doctors. Where are you going to do this at the conference?
It's at Lake Tahoe, and they said it's an internal event. So if people are thinking about it, you can't go. It's an internal event just for the healthcare providers there. But it's at Lake Tahoe in California. So I'm gonna have to fly out to Reno and then get an hour Uber from Reno over to the other side of the lake, and it'll be snowing. So I said, how many of them are actually going to come to my talk versus skiing? Because they said, no, they need the CMEs. They'll be in the rooms. Okay.
Well, you're going to be 2 hours from me. That's amazing. So congratulations. Because yeah, Kaiser seems very receptive about lifestyle medicine.
Well, they have a reason to, financial incentive. Right. So Kaiser is the insurance company that owns the hospital. So normally hospitals only make money if you're in the hospital, right? You have to be in the hospital for the hospital to get paid. But if you own the hospital and the insurance company, then you lose money every time someone goes into the hospital. So Kaiser is set up in a way in which they make the most money when people don't have to go to the hospital. And so there's an incentive to keep people healthy. And so that's why they're inviting me. I mean, I have really good evidence-based work, and I'm extremely scientific. I'm as a researcher, as a physician, and so a lot of times that's why doctors and even pharmaceutical researchers that have come to me and other scientists have always said that they follow my protocols because they can tell when they're listening to me that I do know the science. And so it's a great honor, though. It's a great honor to be asked to be there, because every time I help doctors learn, I'm helping thousands of people that they treat. But as much as 1,100 seems like a lot, when you look at how many people are sick today, it doesn't even touch it. But that's why we go direct to the public. That's why I spend so much time donating my time to the public.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. And just tell everybody what you do on Wednesdays. I've been watching some of them. They're fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Every Wednesday, I donate an hour to the public every time I can. So it's Wednesdays at 12:30 Pacific time. 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. I do live Q&As and coaching for free for the public. And I live stream on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube all at the same time at Goodbye Lupus. And I have people, every time I go live, there's 1,000 people that will show up across all the platforms. And it's a great honor. Most of them tell me they come every single week. When I meet people out in the public, they'll tell me like it's incredible to me that people carve out their precious time that way to come and listen. But I like to do that as much as I can to help people who maybe wouldn't be able to work with me and be able to get those results. I've had people tell me the only reason that they're able to heal is they know that they're going to see me every week and remind them and keep them motivated. And so that means a lot to me to be able to do that.
People are thanking you for that, and they're saying you're a true healer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is from Julia. Dr. Goldner, I think you're a remarkable and beautiful person. So grateful for you. Could you please say some words of encouragement for those of us who are following your autoimmune protocol to a T, but are not yet seeing the excellent results you usually report, even after doing our best for many weeks or months? It seems that most people experience a miracle in just a few days or weeks. In your experience, do some people just take longer to heal and eliminate their mystery symptoms? Thank you. Love, Julia.
Hi, Julia. So first of all, thanks for what you said. So normally, you're right. When you apply the nutrition, and especially if you're doing my Goodbye Autoimmune protocol, right? It's the nutrition and the self-care and the sleep and the work on your moods, all of those things, right? So sometimes when people are, most of the time, let me put it this way. Most of the time when people tell me that they're trying to do it on their own and they're not seeing the results, here's the typical things that are going on. One, they're not getting it right. So they think they're doing it right, and they're just not. Every single person in my rapid recovery group, in spite of giving away my protocols to the public and teaching for free all the time, every single one of them, when they join, go, you know what? I haven't been doing it like this. I haven't been this consistent before. I've been telling myself, but I haven't been this consistent. I haven't always hit these numbers, etc. So a lot of times people just haven't been getting it right. Okay. The second reason, if someone really is doing it right, in terms of the nutrition and not getting results, usually it's been because of either low moods and or poor sleep, right? So in order for your body to use that nutrition just for cellular repair and recovery, you have to stop damaging your body. How do you damage your body? Well, one is by eating crap, right? So if you took the crap out because you're doing the food right, the other reasons people continue to create damage in their body is through depression, anxiety, emotional trauma that they're living with, or they're not getting enough sleep. Sleep is really when your body does the majority of cellular repair. So I would be checking in with yourself to see, am I usually in a low, anxious, depressed state or a mess state? Do I do enough self-care? Am I getting enough sleep where I feel refreshed every day? That's oftentimes the issue, especially if someone's actually doing it right. That's why in my rapid recovery group, the majority of the work I do every single day is on emotional health, self-care, recovering from trauma, forgiveness work. I mean, it's the mental stuff, because this thing over here is what gets in the way of most people's recovery. And so, you know, we just had our final meeting on Friday of my last group. Our next group starts March 8th, but the last group that just finished, it's so, every single time it's the same thing people say, and every time it means so much to me, is they'll say, you know, I came here to get rid of my arthritis and to fix my labs, and I did, but the biggest change has been that I now know how to be happy. I've forgiven the people who've hurt me. I actually prioritize my own voice, my own self-care. I know how to stand up for myself now. I feel good about who I am now. I know how to love myself now. And that's from the daily work of me coaching them every day through all of that. So that is often what holds people back, and they don't even realize it, is that they are caretakers who don't spend any time on their own emotional well-being, their own emotional health. So check in with yourself on that. Those are the biggest reasons that people who really are trying don't get it, right? Don't get the results that they need. It's just they're not doing it right, or they're not really taking care of their emotional health or their sleep. Those are the biggest reasons. If none of those things ring a bell, then I do recommend you work with me, right? I do everything I can to give it all away so that people can get better. And they do. We've got thousands of people all over the world just post online and tell us how much they've healed just from my free content. I see that every week in my Wellness Wednesdays. They'll write it in the comments, right? But if you can't, that's why I have things like programs like that, like a wellness session for me to just look at what you're doing and tell you, versus let me take care of you every day for 6 weeks and get you there. You know, and that's a lot of the reason why people will join my 6-week rapid recovery group is I've tried on my own. I haven't gotten there. Let me just let you do it, and help you do it. And every single time people say, this is the best thing I've ever invested in. I can't believe how much my life has changed. So if you're one of those people, just, you know, jump in. We still have spots left. We are starting March 8th, so it's coming up really soon. But that would be an option. You go to goodbyelupus.com and click with work with Dr. G, and let me see what's wrong. Even in wellness appointments, I often can target it, you know, and say, what, this, you didn't do this, or you're not drinking enough water, you're not hitting these numbers. But if you think it's something bigger, or you want more emotional support, my group is the best way to go to get that.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I heard. Because I know one of your big success stories that you just did an interview with Amy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she just said that to me. She healed with me years ago, and over 3 years ago, and doing my rapid recovery group from lupus and Sjogren's, and all of the symptoms she'd carried for so long disappeared. And she has continued to be 100% symptom free. And even the things that she didn't even know were associated with disease, like her brain fog and all this other stuff, to be clear and feel good and feel amazing and be able to maintain that, it's an incredible thing. And that's the usual, the people that I work with. So yeah, Amy. So you know Amy too, huh?
Yeah, she's the daughter of Margie Burton, who was the lady that lost over 100 pounds in her late 60s. And so yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and she came up to me once in a restaurant. She lives up here and sang your praises. So that was really cool to know somebody that really healed. So this is from, well, it doesn't say. Lori. She says, Dr. Goldner, isn't too much fat the cause of diabetes? I'm a thin, healthy, low-fat, raw vegan, and when I eat a little too much healthy fat at night, my fasting blood sugar can get around 118.
Well, one, I'm not really worried about 118 after a meal, but you know, the way to really know what your blood sugars are is your A1C, because it's a blood test that tells you basically what your average blood sugar is over 3 months. So A1C is really the way to know. Sometimes people focus too much on the in the moment blood sugars versus just look at the A1C. If you are eating a low fat, healthy, plant-based diet, my guess is you're not having issues there. But yes, there is a component of well, type 2 diabetes is caused by overeating fats, but it's certain kind of fats like saturated fats and oils. But there's other fats that don't cause it. I mean, I've helped people actually have incredible results in reversing type 2 diabetes. Usually people within 6 weeks don't have diabetes anymore. And when they're doing something like my Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol or my group, for example, A1C usually drops at least 2 points in 6 weeks. And when you think about it, it's the average of your blood sugar over 3 months, and it drops 2 points in 6 weeks. That's how much better they are. And they're doing high doses of flax seeds, chia seeds, flax oil, avocados, unlimited avocados, and diabetes disappears in record time. I've had people come to me whose diabetes got stuck, or it got better on a regular plant-based diet that was very low fat, and they got stuck where it got better and then it just stuck, whether their weight loss and their diabetes. And then they went on my full protocol for my Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol. Boom, within a month, it was gone completely. So being starved of essential fats can also inhibit your ability to recover. So make sure you are getting things like your omega-3s and make sure you're getting enough of water intake for that metabolism, and you should be fine. But if you are thin, healthy, you don't have diabetes, and your blood sugar sometimes goes to 118, I don't see that as an issue. I also don't know why you're measuring it if you're healthy.
Great, thank you.
It's a source of anxiety.
Didn't you go to Israel last year?
We were going to go to Israel in December. And then after October 7th, we canceled our tickets because it's not really a good time to go to Israel.
No, I know that. No, because I keep thinking of that song about water. You know that song, Mayim. You know, we're talking about water today, and I can't say.
Yeah. No, I was supposed to go there. They actually are trying to start a plant-based health movement there. The doctors haven't caught on there yet. They have a very big vegan movement there for animal rights, but the medical people have not caught on yet. And so I was going to do a conference for medical personnel. But yeah, we had to, well, we will do it, but we're going to let things, we're going to wait.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. This is from, well, it says Laura, but it says, I'm a 33-year-old male and I eat a SAD diet. I have had EOE for a year. I've eliminated gluten and feel 80% better. My mom told me about your success with healing autoimmune diseases. Have you cured anyone with EOE? If so, have they been able to eat the trigger food again? I've been hyper-nourishing with the smoothies for a couple of weeks, and I'm thinking about doing the full GAIP program, maybe with your husband as a coach, since I'm also a weightlifter. In your experience, do people have a relapse if they go back to eating the SAD diet? I'm not sure I can switch to eating vegan immediately. My doctor said I gave myself 2 shots per month for the rest of my life, but it's expensive, and I'm wondering about the side effects.
Okay, so that was loaded. But what I say is, yes, we have seen people get better from EOE. Yes, we've seen people with all different kinds of allergic conditions be able to go back to their trigger foods once they're healthy. If you didn't have this your whole life, your body does have a memory of what it's like to be healthy, but you have to be much more aggressive to get healthy than to stay healthy. And the last one is just your addicted mind trying to speak up. Like, when can I go back to eating the stuff that made me sick to begin with? Don't do it. And when it's the hardest part about becoming plant-based or vegan is making the decision to do it, right? Once you've been doing it and you get all the health benefits, your brain won't want the same things at once now. So it's like telling someone who's addicted to sugar never to eat sugar again. No, I can't imagine life without it. But if they go on a sugar break and they start to feel good and feel better, then after a while, the brain actually calms down from that addiction and you're able to think more clearly. It would be the same as quitting smoking, right? So in the beginning, you crave it, especially the first month. And then after a while, you realize, I never want to go back to that addiction again. So I have found for a lot of folks, the best thing they could do is first commit to a month or 6 weeks. Like if you wanted to do that private rapid recovery program with my husband or work with him on wellness, yeah, absolutely. But you give yourself the chance to get better, and then you can reevaluate what you do next. But, it's very hard when you're in the state of that food addiction to then predict what your life will be like once it's gone. But yeah, like for me, I was addicted to cheese and eggs. And now I get fight or flight when I look at that. I'm like, no, there's no chance that I would ever go back to the things that made me sick. Being healthy is just so much better.
Yeah. Maybe just quickly say what EOE is, because not everybody's a doctor.
Eosinophilic esophagitis. So basically, people get, most simply, it's a type of allergy where the esophagus is inflamed and red, and it's reacting to the foods that are sliding down the throat. So it's just an overactivity of the inflammatory immune system in the allergic area.
Right, because the general public doesn't always know acronyms. Like Mary Ann said, have you ever helped anyone with MECFS? And have you? What is it? And then I'll let you go.
So, so a lot of times, yeah, it's just easy to use all these, right? So, really what that is like chronic fatigue. So yes, absolutely. It's interesting. So people get diagnosed and they get all these acronyms, right? And basically they're just exhausted all the time. So one of the most common reasons people do my rapid recovery group actually is they're just so exhausted they can't do anything else. They're like, fine, I'm willing to eat all this stuff, weird stuff you're telling me to eat, which is just, vegetables. But yes, absolutely. And usually their energy's back within only a couple weeks. So if you're dealing with chronic fatigue, maybe part of the reason is your hydration. And the other reason people are tired is because they're malnourished. So if you combine, oh my gosh, it's like the whole protocol. If you combine eating like hyper-nourishment with your green smoothies and then getting in all of your water intake that I'm telling you to do, you might have that energy back. Well, within a couple of weeks, you might be feeling dramatically better.
Well, cheers to you, Dr. Goldner, and everyone. We're all going to start drinking so much more water. Thank you so much, Dr. Goldner.
Oh, you're so welcome. L'chaim to life.
Exactly.
Water is the key to life.
And I can't wait to hear next month about how it was like speaking to 1,100 Kaiser doctors. That sounds amazing.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about that.
Thank you. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back in 5 minutes for Dr. Alan Goldhammer. Take care.